Welcome to week 5. This week we're going to talk about the consumer research process, and like so many topics in consumer behavior, there's two sides to it. How consumers make up their minds as to what they're going to purchase, and how we reach them as consumers and learn how to understand their needs. In this video, which is the first of two, we're going to talk about how we conduct research about our consumers. So there's two types of research, and up until now we've been talking primarily about the second kind, secondary research. So secondary research is looking at data gathered by others, and we've already done a fair amount of that when we looked at the census data and third-party reports. But we also need to think about how do we conduct primary research. Primary research is when we talk directly to consumers or conduct scientific observations of consumer behavior. There's a lot of different ways of doing primary research that we're going to cover this week. You can do focus groups, you can conduct surveys, and you can use social listening to find out what consumers are saying and measure it and create real quantitative data around what your consumers really want. You can also conduct qualitative data in the form of, again, focus groups and deep analysis of what consumers are saying. But both of these fall under the heading of primary research, where you are directly observing consumers rather than relying on data sets that we've relied on up until now, like the census data. There's plenty of room in consumer research for both, and in fact, in order for your picture of what your consumers want to be really clear, you need to conduct both primary and secondary research. So within both primary and secondary research, those are the two types of research, and there's two ways of gathering them. One is quantitative. That's all about the numbers. That's, for instance, when a company either conducts a survey, primary research, and totals up the numbers of consumers who like a particular brand or don't like a particular brand. When you talk about quantitative research and secondary research, that's when you look at, for instance, the census numbers and think about what percent of people living in a particular zip code own their own home. Whether you're going directly to the consumer and talking to them, or you're looking in third-party data sets like the census or a research report, quantitative data is numbers-based data. It's any kind of research, whether direct or getting it from somebody else, where you're focused on large numbers and percentages. What percentage of people like a particular brand? What percentage of people need a particular type of product? It's numbers driven. Qualitative data, on the other hand, is emotion driven, personality driven, and more holistic. Qualitative data can also be either primary, in the sense that you talk to people to gather the data, or secondary, in the sense that somebody has gathered that data already and you're looking at it. Why it's different from quantitative data is that it's focused not on number crunching, but on the in-depth portrait of particular types of consumers. So, for instance, qualitative data can involve interviewing your customers and asking them what kind of colors they're looking for spring, how they feel about your brand, and not looking at large numbers of consumers, but at each person as an individual, in order to get a sense of how consumers feel about your brand or what their decision-making process is. It's a lot more complicated and a lot more involved to gather, but it can give you a much fuller picture of how people are reacting to your brand and what their decision-making process is. Often, qualitative data is much more likely to be primary, in other words, to be gathered by dealing directly with the consumer, than quantitative data. Numbers-based data you can always get from somebody else, but that kind of face-to-face interaction with your consumer, that's something that you have to do directly with the consumer. That doesn't mean that quantitative data, in other words, that numbers-based data, isn't really valuable. And there's a bunch of methods that we use to gather quantitative data, or, as it's referred to in the industry, conduct quantitative research. Surveys are among the most popular, and you will find that they are often free or very affordable to conduct on your own. There are a lot of survey software tools out there, like SurveyMonkey or Constant Contact, both of which are brands that offer free tools, as you can do also with Google Forms, that allow people to check off their answers, multiple choice styles. So it's very quick and easy to gather quantitative data in that way. You can send out a survey, for instance, asking people what their favorite colors are and having them check off all that apply. You then add up the number of people who like pink versus who like purple, and there you have done quantitative research on consumer color preferences. Another form of quantitative data are attitude scales. That's probably a kind of survey you've done plenty of times in your own life. For instance, you'll get a receipt at a store and they'll ask you to fill out a survey, and it's bound to often ask you, on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely you are to recommend a particular brand or come back to a particular store. That's what's called an attitude scale, because you're being asked to rate your attitude about a brand on a scale. The scale is often 1 to 10 or 1 to 5. Another form of quantitative, in other words, numbers-based data that's become popular lately is marketing analytics. There are software platforms, one of the most popular of which is called Google Analytics, that allow marketers to observe how people are behaving on their websites in an anonymous way often. For instance, did you know that using the free software, Google Analytics, you can see what pages are most popular on a website, how often people click on a particular link on a website, and even how long they stay on a page. You can also see what regions of the country and even what cities people are coming from when they visit your website. This can give marketers invaluable information about their consumers, again in a quantitative or numbers-based way. They can tell you, for instance, that if you have a lot of photos on a particular page, your customers are more likely to spend time on that page, and it can even tell you if they're more likely to make large purchases after viewing a page with a lot of pictures. Can also tell you whether people in Paris or Milan or New York are more likely to make large purchases on your website by giving you the real data of how customers interact with your website. Again, this software platform is called Google Analytics, and it's another way of gathering quantitative data. The science behind it is called marketing analytics. Qualitative research, on the other hand, is something you've probably heard about in the past, but is sometimes shrouded in mystery for beginning marketers and even for very experienced ones. One of the most common ways of conducting qualitative research is the focus group. Focus groups are when a group of consumers are gathered around a table and ask their opinions about a brand. It's not a large number of people, so it's not numbers-based research, it's more in-depth. In focus groups, people discuss their attitudes about a particular brand and also the kinds of products they'd like to see in the future. They're an extremely valuable way of finding out what your customers really think and how you can serve them better and develop new products for them. But they can be very expensive and labor-intensive to conduct, because you need to invite people to come to your focus group and spend a fair amount of time with them. Even more labor-intensive, but even more valuable, are depth interviews. That's when you sit down one-on-one with individual customers who are typical of your customer base, and you ask them their opinions about everything from the quality of the lighting in your stores to what they would like to see in a in products from you 1 or 2 seasons down the line. It involves spending the time to sit down with a representative range of your customers, but it can be one of the best ways you conduct qualitative research. Now, when it comes to gathering data, whether it's qualitative or quantitative, whether it's primary, in other words, you gathered it yourself, or secondary, in other words, you got it from some other source, gathering data is only part of the battle. The next thing you really need to do is analyze the data, because data is often subject to interpretation. You have to know what the numbers mean. For instance, let's say your quantitative data in the form of your marketing analytics data is telling you that last month browsers shopping your e-commerce site from Paris were twice as likely to buy raincoats as browsers shopping your site from Boston. Now, does that mean that everybody in Paris is crazy about raincoats? Well, maybe you should check the weather reports for Paris going back a couple of weeks, and you'll find out that it's been maybe very rainy there. If you hadn't thought to look at that weather report, let's say you had a colleague working alongside you who isn't as creative as you are, you wouldn't have noticed that that's the reason why all those raincoats were selling in Paris. Maybe you would not have had that bright idea then to then target advertising in areas where the weather forecast predicts rain to try to sell raincoats. That's an example of data analysis. In other words, being smart and thinking about the data so that you know what it means, and trying different hypotheses or ideas about what the data might mean in order to figure out what it's telling you you should do. Skilled interpretation of data has to be based on industry expertise, an understanding of individual psychology, an understanding of organizational psychology. Basically, you have to bring a lot of brain power and a lot of critical thinking to any data set in order to make good predictions based on it. It's often a team effort. But remember, no matter how good your data is, it doesn't do you any good in terms of making business decisions unless you are smart about analysis. I hope you enjoyed this session about data analytics. In our next slideshow, we're going to talk about how consumers gather information about brands, the other side of consumer research.